What if the system isn't broken? What if it's working exactly as intended by breaking you first? We have all been told the same foundational myth. Study hard, get the rank, build the career, secure the future. But look around you. In every cramped hostel room, behind every glowing smartphone screen late at night, there isn't just ambition. There is a quiet suffocating nihilism. Today we aren't reviewing a simple piece of pop fiction. We are dissecting into an autopsy of our collective youth. We are diving into Chetan Bhagat's Revolution 2020, not to mock its simplicity, but to uncover a terrifying truth about the Faustian bargain every single one of us is forced to make the moment we turn 18. Welcome back. If you are new here, this is a space for deep analysis, literature, and the modern philosophies that explain who we are when nobody is watching. Now let's address the elephant in the room. Literary critics love to love to dismiss Chetan Bhagat. They call his prose simple, his characters flat, but they miss the entire point. Bhagat isn't writing for the literary elite. He is a mirror to the raw, unpolished psyche of mainstream India. And Revolution 2020 is arguably his darkest work. It is set in a Varanasi, a city defined by ancient spiritual eternity on one hand and the brutal transactional reality of the modern coaching classes mafia on other. This isn't a romance story. It is a philosophical battleground between two archetypes that live inside every single one of us. Gopal, the ruthless pragmatist who realizes the system isn't corrupt and decides to become its master. And Raghav, the unyielding idealist who believes he can burn it all down. The question is, by the end of this tragedy, who actually wins? And more importantly, which one are you? To understand this story, you have to understand the geography of despair, Varanasi. The Ganges flows silently, carrying centuries of prayers and ashes. But just a few kilometers away from the Ghats, another river flows, one made of thousands of young desperate minds pouring into coaching centers. Gopal Mishra comes from nothing. His father is a retired ailing teacher fighting a losing land battle. Raghav Kashyap comes from intellectual security. His father is a government engineer. Both of them love the same girl, Aarti. But the system doesn't care about love. It cares about ranks. How highly you are ranked. And when the results of the engineering entrance examination drop, the trajectory of their soul splits forever. Raghav succeeds, Gopal fails. And that singular moment of academic rejection, Gopal doesn't just feel disappointment. He experiences an existential annihilation. He realizes that in a hyper-competitive society, a student without a high rank isn't just unsuccessful, he is invisible. He is worthless. This is where the book shifts from a generic coming-of-age tale into a chilling exploration of moral compromise. Gopal goes to Kota, the hyper-industrial manufacturing plant of student dreams. He watches the machinery of education up close. He sees how parents mortgage their ancestral lands, how teenagers trade their sanity, all for a statistical probability of success. And it's where that Gopal makes his choice. He refuses to be Sisyphus anymore. He refuses to push the boulder up the hill just for it to roll back down. If the game is rigged, why play by the rules? Now, enter Suklaji, a corrupt politician who sees in Gopal the perfect instrument. Together they exploit a loophole in the system to build a massive private engineering college on a disputed land. Gopal transforms from a failed aspirant into a wealthy, powerful director of an institution. He buys the luxury cars, he buys the respect of society. He even wins back the attention of Aarti, who drifts towards his newly acquired stability. Meanwhile, Raghav takes the opposite path. He graduates as an engineer, but rejects the corporate package. He becomes a journalist. He lives in a dusty, low-rent office, surviving on peanuts, exposing corruption. He wants a revolution. But here's the psychological twist. Gopal, with all his corrupt wealth, is haunted by an insatiable imposter syndrome. He knows his success is built on a foundation of lies. Raghav, with all his moral purity, is suffocated by poverty and the harsh reality that the people he is trying to save would rather buy a degree from Gopal than read Raghav's newspaper. Now let's elevate this. What Bhagat has inadvertently constructed here is a classic existential conflict. Look at it through the lens of French philosopher Albert Camus. Camus argued that when confronted with the absurd cruelty of existence, man has three options: physical suicide, philosophical suicide, like submitting to an illusion, or revolt. Gopal commits philosophical suicide. He accepts the corrupt structure of a world, adopts its metrics of money and power, and smoothes his conscience. He tells himself, "The world is dirty. I'm just using the mud to build my palace." Raghav chooses revolt. He becomes the absurd hero fighting a system that cannot be defeated purely because the act of fighting is the only thing that keeps him human. But look at the cost of Raghav's revolt. His idealism doesn't just hurt him, it strains his relationship, isolates him, and makes him completely broke. This is what the German philosopher Karl Marx described as the commodification of life under capitalism. In a society where everything, even education, even love, is a commodity, the person who refuses to sell themselves becomes an anomaly, an outsider. Let's be completely honest with each other right now. Drop a comment below because I want to know your real thoughts. If you were in Gopal's shoes, your father dying of illness, your family drawing in court debts, your society looking down on you as a failure, and someone handed you the keys to corrupt empire that could solve every single one of your material problems, would you really turn it down? Would you really choose to be Raghav, Brock, writing articles that changes nothing while the love of your life mazes the guy who chose the money? Which one will you choose to be? It's easy to sit in the comfort of our rooms and judge Gopal's corruption. But the terrifying genius of this narrative is that it forces us to confront our own price tag. We like to think we are the heroes of a revolutionary story, but most of us are just trying to survive the week. The true tragedy of Revolution 2020 arrives in the final act. Gopal achieves everything. He has the money, the status, the college, and he is on the verge of marrying Aarti. But he realizes that Raghav's investigative journalism is about to destroy the corrupt politician Shiklaji, which would destroy the college too. Gopal has the power to crush Raghav completely. He can frame him, silence him, ruin him. But at the final cliff edge, the ghost of his childhood self wakes up. He looks at Raghav, the man who is broke but free, and he looks at himself, the man who is rich but enslaved. In an act of profound agonizing sacrifice, Gopal orchestrates a scenario where Aarti leaves him and goes back to Raghav. He protects Raghav's journalism from being destroyed. Gopal uses his corruption to save the idealist. Think about how deeply cynical that ending actually is. The idealist Raghav only survives and achieves his revolution because the corrupt pragmatist Gopal allowed him to. Morality didn't win because it was stronger. It won because corruption had a moment of mercy. The revolution of 2020 wasn't a grand awakening of the masses. It was a private heart-breaking transaction in a dark room. We live in an era where the pressure to conform, to compromise, and to sell out are higher than ever before. Revolution 2020 reminds us that the worst thing a system can do to you isn't flunking you in an exam. It's making you believe that your only choices are to be rich, monster, or broken saint. If this deep dive made you look at modern success differently, hit that subscribe button. We unpack the philosophy behind books and stories that shape our world every single week. Thank you for watching this video. Keep reading, keep thinking, and stay rebellious. Thank you for your time. Have a good day.